Okay, perfect. Thank you. So are there any council member announcements? Nope. Okay. County and local reports. Do we have a sheriff's report? Is Sergeant Slaughter here tonight? If so, raise your hand. Okay, I don't see them. What about a highway patrol, Captain Klingenberg? No, I don't see. Okay.
No.
All right, is Claire on? I didn't see her come in.
Nope, I don't see her either.
What is going on tonight? This is not
It's
normal.
spring break this week.
True, but she and I talked today. Okay. Kip Morales from Slope County Planning and Building Department. I sent him an agenda. They were going to talk about our HCP tonight.
Oh,
And what happened to Joshua Roberts? Is he on?
Nope.
You know, when I tried to get on earlier today, I had to download Zoom and I didn't know if it related to, me getting my passcode changed to be on being able to run a meeting, or if it was something else with Zoom. Did anyone else have that happen today when they tried to get on Zoom?
No, I didn't have any problem.
Okay.
All right, this is very strange that none of the county people who confirmed today with me aren't here.
Bruce is here.
Bruce is here. Supervisor Gibson, I'm going to ask you to
Claire?
unmute. I don't know what happened to your county departments.
You went through the whole list of people you wanted to talk to, and I'm all you got. So
You know what? We're
We'll take
very happy to have you tonight.
That's fine. I can talk to a couple of those things. Pleasure to be with you. Timing worked out just perfectly. I was coming back from a meeting in Los Angeles, and I managed to survive that insanity. And you get here, I just can't tell you what, when I got out of San Luis Obispo heading down the Chorro Valley, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to heal. It's going to be okay. We got a few things to talk about. You wanted to talk about the HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan. I can give you the outline of it. The details are yet to come. The actual incidental take permit, the idea of an HCP, Habitat Conservation Plan, is when you're working in areas with endangered, threatened, and endangered species, you've got to be careful. And we know that some amount of impact is going to occur. So if we look inside the urban reserve line of Los Osos, if someone wants to build a house on a vacant lot eventually, or to add on, or do something like establish a dog park, or do something like fuel reduction up along Highland, we know there's going to be some disturbance of sensitive habitat, going to have a potential impact on threatened and endangered species. And so the concept is that we're going to mitigate that by finding areas to preserve, new areas where we can take these into a form of public ownership that's going to allow us to protect that habitat, or if there are degraded areas already in public ownership, to be able to restore them. So we have all the necessary plans in place about how much mitigation is going to be required per square foot of per square foot of disturbance. And now we need to actually set up a program to do that. What we would do is be able to issue credits for disturbing a certain area. So again, if you wanted to add to the footprint of a house, it's going to disturb so many hundred square feet. We'll calculate that, that will come up with a number that goes into a fund that's going to be used for doing good things basically in the green belt around Los Osos, and most of that in the area south of Redfield Woods up on the hills. The one thing we need to do a couple of things. One of them is we need to find an entity to manage that acquisition or restoration, and we're working on that with a land conservancy. We will need one staff person to manage the accounting of credits and to take input and output, and to take applications and to issue the formal permits or mitigation certificates or whatever they are going to be. That will be paid from the funds that are collected as part of the mitigation fee. And finally, we need to actually get a little bit ahead. So what we need to do is actually, the easiest way is to actually secure some amount of acreage to purchase, to bring it into conservation. And that's going to require a fronting loan from the county. So all of those things are being worked out. We hope to be able to come back to the board by the fall. We've got to figure out exactly how an internal loan is going to work. We've got to figure out exactly who's going to manage this and how the mechanics of it are going to work. And that's being worked on. And so we should have an operating habitat conservation program by sometime in the fall this year. So I hope that explains a little bit. I think it was Kip Morris who was going to be here to maybe
Yeah,
explain
they
it.
are, Kip and Claire are trying to get on.
Okay, so we may do that. I do see Joshua Roberts
Yep.
on right now, so maybe I'll cease and desist and let Joshua talk about the public works issues.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Can-
Supervisor
Can I ask a
Dixon.
question, Bruce, about the HCP?
Sure.
I actually have two questions. So let's say we wanted to build a trail, and so my understanding is that we don't have to go looking for snails. We just say, okay, the trail is this long, it's going to take up this much space, and there's a certain amount of money that goes with that amount of
Yep.
geography.
Yep.
We'll pay for the
Yep.
incidental take. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there has to be due care taken not to consciously smash snails. The concept embedded in the HCP is called an incidental take permit. So we're going to build a trail. We're going to be careful. We're going to look to make sure that they aren't obviously there. But if we damage habitat that is to their detriment, then we're okay because we've done this mitigating offset. And so same thing, dog park or whatever we want to do.
Okay, got it. And then my next question is, why does the property have to be purchased? Could it not be donated? And if it was donated, what benefit would the property owner get by making that donation?
Well, yes, I suppose it could be donated. That's probably I'm nearly 100% sure that that's part of working with I forget what the technical term is, but if we have a land conservancy involved, then they can act as an agent. And as a nonprofit, if someone donates a piece of land to them, they can take tax benefits for the appraised value of whatever it is they've donated. So that would be a benefit that would encourage that. But if we have to buy, we have to buy, because that'll get paid back by it's all calculated in terms of the mitigation fee that would be charged.
Right, I was just curious about that. Thank you.
Can I ask one?
Can I ask a question along the along the same lines? Instead of building a trail, what if we wanted to plant a tree along Palisades? Nothing needs to be purchased.
Yeah.
Disturbance is a matter of inches, not the size of a building or anything. But we want to plant, let's say, 10 trees along Palisades.
Yeah.
Now that this is agreed to, can we just go ahead and do it?
Well, I think, John, I would have you check if it's in the county road right of way. We check with our Public Works Department, make sure that, it's going in the right place and is the right kind of tree. But, in previous tree plantings have not invoked this kind of permitting issue. So we will be able to work with planting trees, and I don't expect that any kind of permitting is going to be triggered by planting trees in most places.
Okay, so thank you,
Sounds like
Supervisor
yes.
Gibson. John, we're gonna go back to Supervisor Gibson,
Okay.
if that is all right with you, because
Sure.
everyone has now joined the meeting. And so
Okay.
I'm gonna go back into the agenda. So I saw that Stuart McDonald is here. So I'm going to ask him what information he has for us tonight. Ask you to unmute. There you go. Welcome.
Hello, how are you this evening?
We are great.
I'm sorry I'm a little late. I was trying a different link that was not letting me in. For February in Los Osos, we had 2 assault and battery calls. One was a battery call, the other was domestic violence related. We had 22 disturbances that included 16 general disturbances, 2 neighborhood disputes or neighbors disputes, 2 loud music calls, 1 family dispute, and 1 fireworks call. There were 4 burglaries reported in February that included 1 vehicle burglary, 2 residential burglaries, and then there was a 4th one that was reported, but after investigation was determined to be unfounded, which means that the crime did not occur. There were 4 thefts reported. They were all petty thefts, and that means that the value of loss was under $950. There was 1 vandalism, which unfortunately was graffiti at the Los Osos Community Park, and we've been having an issue over there, so we have been trying to keep an extra eye out at the park so that we don't get vandalized again. There was 1 mail theft of mail that was reported in the 1300 block of Nopomo Avenue. We had 2 phone scams reported in February, and I like to tell everyone a little bit about the scams so that they kind of get a feel for the kinds of stories that fraudsters spin. One was a Spectrum cable scam, which involved somebody being offered prepayment of a year's subscription for a fantastic deal. Of course, she had to pay with gift cards. So anytime gift cards are involved, it's likely a scam. The other was a warrant scam, which is the one where they've been doing for several months now, where they're actually spoofing the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office and indicating that you have some kind of a warrant that you can pay your fines with, again, with gift cards, which is not a way that we do business. We had 31 suspicious circumstance calls, which included 10 suspicious circumstances, 16 suspicious subjects, 5 suspicious vehicles. The deputies that work in the Los Osos area conducted 47 enforcement stops, which included 41 vehicle stops, 5 pedestrian stops, and 1 bicycle stop. They also engaged in 32 preventative patrol activities, which included 15 on-site activities, 7 foot patrols, 6 patrol checks, and 4 extra patrols. And that concludes my report, and I'm available for questions or concerns.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from council?
I have a question. Were there any arrests?
Yes, there were arrests. It's not a statistic that I generally report each month, but I can bring that back to you on next month's. I did have another advisory council ask that same question this month, and so I can add that to my statistics and next month start reporting those out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the community? Please raise your hand. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry you had a hard time trying to get on tonight. I think I know what happened. So we will make that change before the next meeting.
Yeah, and I figured it out too, so I'll be in on time next time.
Okay. No worries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Let's go down to county staff report, Claire. And I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for being late too. We were using the wrong link. Okay, so County of SLO planning and building update. I'll just give a short update, and then my coworker Kip Morais is here, who is the project manager for the Los Osos Habitat Conservation Plan. And he will stick around to give a little brief presentation on what that plan is and answer any questions. So real quickly, a general update, the Los Osos water offset program update and ordinance amendments passed at the February 27th Board of Supervisors hearing and becomes effective 30 days later, which is tomorrow. So March 29th, tomorrow, the new program requirements will be effective. What this update really means is that property owners who plan to sell a home or build a new home have more conservative plumbing fixture flow requirements for toilets, shower heads, clothes washers, and hot water recirculation systems. With the program update, we also made some improvements to our internal procedures and processes. But in all, the update of the program just further facilitates net positive impacts to the sustainability of the groundwater basin. I also wanted to mention, I know someone brought up in the public at last month's meeting, just wanting clarity on acronyms and things that we throw out there. So during mine and Kip's presentations, I'm just going to throw definitions into the chat just so everyone knows what we're talking about. And then the other thing is for council members, the county's Community Advisory Council orientation is on April 26th of next month. I know that's a business item during tonight's meeting, but I am hoping to get a head count of how many council members plan to attend. So I can get that at the end if that's less disruptive.
Thank you.
Cool.
Any questions for Claire from the council? Any questions from the community for Claire? Raise your hand. All right. Let's go to Kip, and I'm so glad you're here to talk to us about the habitat conservation. I'll ask you to unmute. There you go.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kip Morris. I'm with the County Planning Department, and it's so nice of you all to have me here. I recognize many faces in this crowd, so hi, everyone. Apologies for being late. I also was using the wrong link there. So today I am going to be presenting on the Los Osos Habitat Conservation Plan. It's quite a large plan. It's got a long history. I'm sure all of you are a little bit familiar of it, but we'll go over, just briefly some of the basics. I am relatively new to this plan myself. I was just recently made the project manager, so I'm sure you guys will have questions. I will do my best to answer those. Any questions that I'm not able to answer, I will give my contact information, and I'd be happy to look into those as well. So I'll just put that in the chat for everyone. There's my email, and I will get started with this presentation here. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so as I said, my name is Kip Morris, and we'll be presenting on the Los Osos Habitat Conservation Plan. And this will just be like a brief overview. We won't get into too much detail, but we'll cover, some key terms, what the plan is, what it does, what the purpose is, and then what this plan means for LOCAC. And then also what are the next steps moving forward, sort of in timeline for the plan. So we'll get started with some key terms. We have a lot of acronyms that we use, as Claire said, so I just wanted to find some of those for you so that we don't have to spell these out every time we go through them. The LOHCP, that is the Los Osos Habitat Conservation Plan, and this is the plan we're here to talk about. We'll go more in depth into what the plan entails in the next slides. ITP stands for Incidental Take Permit. So this is a federal permit issued pursuant to the Endangered Species Act to cover take and or impacts to federally listed endangered species. This also includes habitat. An incidental take means take that is unintentional but not unexpected. So this is an important one because prior to this plan, individuals had to pursue their own incidental take permit applications from the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife. And what the county has basically done with this plan is applied for a take permit that covers the whole area of Los Osos, roughly follows the URL. And that is all covered under the county's incidental take permit. The next term I'm going to go over is Certificate of Inclusion, or COI. That's a county issued certificate that will ensure take coverage under the LOHCP. So we'll talk more about what that means in a later slide down here. And then USFW, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, that is the agency responsible for implementing the Endangered Species Act. And they are also the agency that issued the county's incidental take permit and approved our habitat conservation plan. And CDFW is the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're our partner agency in this plan. They own state lands that are located south of the community over by Broderson, where a majority of the restoration work will be occurring. Okay, let's get into the purpose of the LOHCP. So the purpose of the plan is a holistic approach to protect and restore natural habitat in the most efficient and effective way possible, while allowing for activities requiring ground disturbance. So by taking this holistic approach, we're both streamlining the process for applicants who would normally require an individual incidental take permit, and also create a preserve system that protects habitat in a cohesive manner. So the plan streamlines the processes for applicants because rather than having to go through the process of hiring a biologist and creating their own individual habitat conservation plan and submitting that to USFW, which takes time and money, applicants can simply pay a fee per square foot of ground disturbance that will go into setting aside property for conservation and funding restoration efforts. So the plan protects habitat in the most efficient way possible by protecting and restoring areas with the highest habitat value as identified by biologists. So if we didn't have this plan, what would that mean? If we didn't have the plan, projects involving ground disturbance would still be required to obtain an incidental take permit from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This would just be done on an individual basis as it has been up until this point. The process involved hiring a biologist and developing an individual habitat conservation plan, which could be lengthy and expensive, and it also resulted in habitat being preserved in a fragmented way. So you wouldn't necessarily have, habitat that was together. Wildlife could move back and forth between it, and so this plan is really an effort to kind of have a more holistic approach in that regard. So now that we have the plan, what does that mean? So instead of an individual applying for an ITP from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the county has applied and obtained the ITP for the whole community. The plan will establish a fee system whereby applicants will pay a fee per square foot, and that fee will use to be acquire properties to set aside within the preserve system and also fund habitat restoration activities. And many of those would occur on that CDFW property I mentioned. The Coastal Commission and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have stated that the establishment of this plan is the preferred method of preserving habitat in the Los Osos area, and that is because of that more efficient approach to habitat conservation. So the LOHCP itself is a planning document that is required as part of the application for the incidental take permit. So we were required to write this document under the Endangered Species Act. And the HCP describes measures designed to avoid, minimize, and offset the effects of covered activities on federally listed wildlife and plant species. And specifically, this plan covers 4 species. So those are the Morrow shoulder-band snail, the Morrow manzanita, the Morrow Bay kangaroo rat, and Indian knob mountain balm. Coverage under this plan means that the projects that would normally require the individual ITP no longer do, and they'll pay that fee for ground disturbance, as I mentioned. And site disturbance that would apply under this plan could be any project. So we're talking additions, new residences, utilities such as wells and pipelines, government projects, park expansions, really anything that's going to cause new ground disturbance in that environment. So some stuff won't be subject to the plan or it won't require an incidental take permit, and that would be, for example, an addition that doesn't result in ground disturbance, like if you were putting a second story on your house or something of that nature, or if you were, say, putting up like a shed on a patio that already exists, you're not really disturbing the ground. You wouldn't pay a fee in that instance, and you wouldn't need a certificate of inclusion in the plan. So when the fees have been paid to the county will issue the certificate of inclusion, that COI that we're talking about. And that means the project is included under the county's incidental take permit. So the plan covers a 25-year permit term. So that's the permit term of the county's ITP, actually. And during this 25-year term, we will implement the plan, including habitat conservation and habitat restoration. So this plan allows us to protect the habitat. It allows community development. It allows people's additions and projects to move forward. It allows the county to help our partner organizations achieve what they need in terms of, helping the CDFW engage in restoration work. And it also allows for needed infrastructure improvements, such as basin management projects, wells, pipelines, et cetera. Any kind of road improvements, so sidewalks, road expansions, and also community projects that may come down the road, such as library and parks projects. Those will also benefit from this plan because it will allow them to move forward. So in terms of what are the next steps, and now that we've obtained our ITP from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, what are we doing now? So county staff is preparing an implementation packet to take to the Board of Supervisors. Hopefully we'll be going this fall. This packet will contain, among other things, proposals for setting up program implementation. So that includes property acquisitions and restoration, and requesting staff to administer the program, and also a proposal for a partner organization to actually do the restoration work. So, native plant plantings, invasive species mitigation, things of that nature. We're going to partner with an organization to do that work. Staffing is important because we will need a full-time staff member to manage the allocation of credits, interface with the public and other agencies, and manage reporting to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is we're required to do as part of the plan. The implementation packet is important because the plan is only as good as how we implement it. So if we don't implement the plan, we don't get credits. The plan includes a stay-ahead provision to ensure that habitat benefits resulting from habitat protection, restoration, and management stay ahead of or equal to impacts and take. So that was a provision that was put in there at the request of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And what it effectively means is the county must first accrue credits before we can issue COIs for projects. So in effect, it means that the county will have to initially front the funding to accrue credits, whether that be through property acquisition to place in the preserve system or engaging in restoration efforts. So as part of the implementation package that we'll bring before board, we will be requesting a loan from the general fund to fund the initial accrual of credits. The funds acquired from the fees will then be used to pay off that loan. So basically, the county's fronting the money up front for the first part of the 25-year plan. We will be requesting an update also to our fee schedule to include the fee for site disturbance. And we'll also be requesting board direction on program implementation and setup in terms of whether we focus our initial efforts on habitat preservation, restoration, or both. Depending on the board direction, we will then begin implementation, including property acquisition, and also conducting baseline surveys so that we know, existing conditions on areas that need to be restored. So I'm sure many of you are now asking, what does this plan mean for LOCAC? How are we involved? So LOCAC's review of proposed projects will actually remain largely unchanged by the plan. The county will still review a proposal to see if a project is a viable project under Title 23. If it is a discretionary permit, like a minor use permit, conditional use permit, it will still be referred to LOCAC. LOCAC will then make a recommendation on land use just like today. If the project is approved, there will be a condition of approval for obtaining credits based on that disturbance. So, the project comes in, it's referred to LOCAC, it goes through the whole process, and then as a condition of approval of that process, say it's a minor use permit, one of the conditions would be to obtain credits under the LOHCP. And then the credit allocation will come in, so it won't really affect LOCAC's review process. The credit allocation process will be formulaic. It will not be discretionary. So we're not going to say, okay, well, this project gets credits and this one doesn't. It's going to be a formula of how those are dispersed. That's not been finalized yet, but that will be part of the packet that we take to the board. And that will take into account, different brackets for different brackets, including property owner projects, infrastructure, and resource projects and community projects. So those credits will be dispersed across those different brackets. So essentially, the plan won't affect LOCAC's review process for discretionary projects, but we do welcome feedback, and we encourage you to come to the. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. And we welcome your feedback. Any kind of recommendations you have. This plan is really designed to help the community and also to be efficient for preserving that habitat. So, the more support we get for it, the better. And we'll make sure to put you all your emails on the interested parties list, so you will be made aware of hearings as they come up. And also, as I mentioned, I put my contact information in the chat as well, so you can get a hold of me for more specific questions. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and I'll be available for questions.
Thank you so much, Kip. Deborah.
Hi, Kip. You mentioned that California Fish and Wildlife partners with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife on the HCP. And you also mentioned that they have an area, and I assume you're talking about the Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve, where the California Fish and Wildlife is already holding land in preservation. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So I want to make sure I understand. The HCP would now fund restoration work within the Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we already have land where these credits could be applied.
Yes.
So why do we need to buy more land?
Well, so the part of the stay ahead provision is that we need to have credits, sort of a bank of credits to allow impacts to occur. And so one of the things that we can do is acquire land, and that gets us a bulk of credits up front, and set that land aside for preservation. Now, obviously, this land has been identified as prime habitat. And the other reason that you would want to do that, and maybe one of the reasons, this is what one of the things the board will consider when they're weighing, acquisition versus restoration. Both of those are part of the plan, but which one we focus on first depends how fast we get credits. There's advantages to focusing on each one. And we haven't, picked one that we're going to really recommend first yet. That hasn't been finalized. But if you acquire land first, that gets you a bulk of credits right away. If you go the restoration route, there are, criteria that we need to meet for U.S. Fish and Wildlife to show that we have done the restoration work well. And some of those have like a 5-year period to look over. So one of the advantages of acquiring land and setting aside, besides just increasing the area of habitat that is conserved, obviously that's a goal of the plan, but it also gets you credits much sooner.
Great answer. Okay, I appreciate that, Kip. And so maybe my next question would be better directed at Supervisor Gibson, because while the acquisition of land is a great way to get credits, it comes with strings attached, and that is it's a loan from the county. So first the county has to come up with the money, which is not easy to do. And now we have to pay back that money with some sort of interest. So maybe I'll save that question for him, but thank you very much for your complete answer.
Kip, we have another question from Molly.
Yeah, so Kip, how much, is there like a minimum amount of land that has to be purchased initially? Like a minimal number of acreage?
Oh, Kip
Kip
muted.
needs to be unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
Got him.
There you go. Sorry, Kip.
Thank you. Yeah, so actually, there isn't a minimum upfront that we need to acquire. Obviously, the more we acquire upfront, the better. The more effective it'll be, the more we have in the bank in terms of allowing projects to move forward, and the more we can meet that stay ahead provision. But there isn't like a set amount to acquire. And a lot of that is obviously going to be a process working with real properties with the county to identify which properties are for sale or might be for sale that we can acquire. So a lot of it depends on what we're actually able to do.
But is there like any generalizations? Like, are they looking at parcels that are like big, like 50 or more acres, or is it smaller lots? I'm just trying to kind of get a little sense of it.
Unmute
Oops,
again.
okay.
I'm
you're gonna-
sorry, I keep muting
Yep.
myself, and that's more out of habit. I'm actually the liaison for the North Coast Area Council, and so I have 2 little kids at home, so I always mute myself in between everything I say. So, but I'm sorry. Could you restate that question, Molly, about the?
Oh, I was just trying to get a sense of scale. Or are they looking at 50-acre parcels, bigger, smaller?
Yeah, so the parcels are actually, there's a whole set of criteria of what constitutes like a really good parcel. Part of that is obviously going to be, the value that you obtain for conservation versus, the cost of the parcel. That has to all be weighed out. Bigger parcels, size is something that we will be looking at that gets factored into that. And then also, just the habitat that's present on the parcel, the type of soils, the type of, what condition it's in. And, is there any like remediation that needs to be done? How much work that needs to be done to make it a viable habitat if there have been, past impacts and stuff like that. That's all stuff that we identify with the biologist. We don't make that public. I think the reasons being that could influence market prices. So we haven't, identified which parcels we have, we're looking at, but those are some of the factors that go into it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other council member questions? Andrea.
Actually, it's just more of a statement. I really appreciate the presentation, Kip. And I think we'll, as LOCAC, we'll definitely keep our eye on this as it goes before the board and provide our input. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Any other council member questions? John. Oh, I'm going to unmute you. You were noisy for a moment. Okay, let me try again.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Yeah, I'm on a committee, a tree and landscape committee in our LOCAC group, and we have kind of a unique function in that we are always looking for ways to plant more trees that create very little disturbance. When you plant a tree, it just doesn't take much habitat that you might be impacting. So and rather than spend a lot of time on it, I was hoping that you might be able to visit with our group to go over the impact of habitat conservation on what we're trying to do in Sosos in terms of planting trees. Would that be possible?
That sounds like something that we could definitely look at doing. I'd have to, of course, talk with my supervisor and make sure that I can dedicate time to that. But if that's not possible, then we can definitely continue a dialogue. But I'll definitely ask about that.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, there's no other council members. Let's open it up to the community. Lindy, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
There we go.
There you
Hi,
go.
thank you, Kip. Interesting presentation. I had a couple just sort of wonderings. One, there are a lot of properties in Los Osos that have been cleared in the past. There's one that's currently being cleared. I don't know if they've gotten any permits. I can't believe that they could. So what is the protocol for those that already kind of went in and took out all the habitat so that they don't have to meet the habitat conservation plan in the future? That's one question. Do you want them one by one?
Yes.
Yeah, probably one by one would be better. Obviously we're going to be looking at properties on an individual case by case basis, but generally if it's a vacant lot, whether it has been clear cut in the past, it still has the potential to harbor habitat. And a lot of times, lots that were clear cut have seen habitat regrow in there. And so those are accounted for in the plan as being, the vacant lots are accounted as being part of the plan. So if you were going to develop one of those lots, then that would count as, a project for the plan that you would need to obtain a COI for.
So you wouldn't necessarily be approving habitat removal at this point because you don't have a habitat conservation plan. So those people would be, I guess, not in compliance with our HCP, right?
Oh, so I don't quite understand.
I know that it's basically a lot that's already gone in, and like we wanted to do with the dog park, we haven't been allowed to lift a finger for it. But they've already gone in and removed everything that's smaller growth and left little clumps. And it doesn't have a permit to build a house yet or anything. So it was just a general question because I see a lot of kind of scurrying around removing native habitat so that they don't have to deal with paying as much into the bank that we're setting up.
Yeah, and the county, we obviously can't police everything, right? So there may be situations where people are removing habitat and we're not aware of it, but that doesn't mean that they'd be exempt from the plan if they went to try and develop it. It's more things that would be exempt would be like, say you had a patio in your backyard and you went to put like a shed on that patio. Well, the patio already exists. You've already paved over it.
Right.
That sort of thing wouldn't necessarily trigger, you having to get a certificate of inclusion. But, if you have a vacant lot and you've gone out and mowed it, per the plan that, and you want to build a house on that, you're still going to have to pay for ground disturbance in there, whether you've gone and removed the habitat or not.
So it would just be discretionary to decide if they had removed it in the past, I guess?
Well, yeah, and it sounds like you're talking about a specific lot, so I would kind of want to know what lot you're talking about to be able to answer us that specifically. But in general, if you have a vacant lot that you've mowed or something like that, or done some vegetation removal, it still counts as habitat for the plan.
Okay,
Okay,
and then I
thank
have
you very much.
one other real quick question. It seems like with the water sustainability problems here, this isn't going to be the rollout that was hoped for pre-sewer. So it's going to take a long time to balance out the water sustainability issues for new growth versus the banking and the county holding this loan. So is the county ready to hold it? You said for 5 years, but it's a 25-year plan. And if we only build 5 houses a year, the county's just going to be adding in the interest, and is that correct?
Oh, you did it again. Here we go.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm in the office and someone's doing some cleaning next to me, so I've got a vacuum cleaner going on. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of moving pieces in Los Osos, the water situation. Claire can probably speak to that a little more. This plan, you know, by in nature of acquiring credits and how long it's going to take us to get credits, we won't really know that until we you know, start applying for you know, the trying to acquire the properties and see how fast we're able to get them to come in, or start doing that restoration work and see how well that's going, right? And so part of that initial phase is going to be you know, doing baseline surveys, like I mentioned, to even see like what it's going to take to restore the habitat. So you know, that in and of itself is probably going to be a limiting factor. It's just the amount of credits that the county can accrue. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Very
Pretty
good.
much.
Thank
Thank you.
Lynette, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Lynette? Ask to unmute. There you go.
I kept trying and it wouldn't do it. Anyway, thanks to Kip for such a great presentation. I have one question. It's a 25-year plan. There's a fee that people will have to pay into it. Since there's inflation and deflation, will that fee be altered in any way over that 25-year period, or will it remain the same?
So that, yeah, we are going to have to examine whether the fee is still enough. And I'll have to look back at the plan for the specific details on that. But I believe that we do an analysis every 3 years on the fee to adjust it. So it is obviously, because it's such a long plan, when it's necessary to adjust for inflation and things of that nature. So yes, it will be looked at again. But right now, I believe the amount is $1.19 per square foot of disturbance. So that's what's in the plan currently.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kip, thank you so much. You're allowed to mute yourself now.
All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you for a great report. We really appreciate it.
All right, it was my pleasure. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, we are now with Joshua Roberts from Public Works Department to give us an update. If we can unmute him. He was right here.
I got him, Trish.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. Hi, everybody.
Hi, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. So I thought I would just jump in and start going through the questions that were on the agenda and you sent to me, Trish.
Yes.
Does that sound good? Okay, status of the corridor study. We met with our consultant yesterday to go over their progress, and we have tentatively scheduled April the 24th, that evening at Monarch Grove Elementary School. Give me about 5 days to get that confirmed. School's out this week, so we haven't been able to get our final confirmation from them, but we'll get that confirmed up next week. The alternative date we're looking at is the day before, which would be the 23rd. We want to do an open house in the evening. It's going to be from about 5:30 until 7:30. And again, that'll be at Monarch Grove Elementary School. We're going to set up various stations that are really laid out based on the various segments of the corridor. I think we're going to have 5 separate tables. We'll have staff and the consultant there to answer questions. And what we've been working on is doing all the data acquisition and really putting together a plan that shows all the existing bike plan, county circulation plan, trails plans, all as one cohesive document, and will give us some chances to talk around some of the issues that have already been raised through the social pinpoint. That's the website we're using for the project. and just finished getting feedback from the public at that meeting. We anticipate hopefully quickly being able to bring together a draft plan and present that to you in probably more like June.
Okay,
But
so
our
the
plan-
draft plan in June, okay.
Yeah, so our plan to advertise, much
Yep.
like we did up in North County with a recent corridor plan there, we did some online messaging, and probably the biggest outreach and most receptive effort was we actually just went out and made a bunch of signs and mounted those along the corridor to let people know about the public meeting, the open house that's going to be happening.
Okay,
And I'll just go through these, and then if
okay,
we join with other questions or specific questions on these topics, we can circle back. But back to the question about the corridor plan and incorporating the safe trek suggestions. Yeah, all the suggestions in the safe trek are already being included as comments in the corridor plan. And then when we get to the next phase, which is actually laying out a plan that incorporates these comments, deals with conflict points, and addresses comments like we're in the safe trek plan, we will include those. I did want to note that many of the comments that were in there were related to roadway striping at crosswalks around the school and along the corridor up at Baywood. And it's already part of our practice to update the crosswalks to modern standards at the time we go through and refresh those, either with our paint updates or when we go through and do a repaving or resurfacing project. But if you see a location that needs addressing, please let us know, and we're happy to go ahead and take care of that.
thank you.
There was also a question, it's a general question about a plan for road repair
Mhm.
in Los Osos. Trish, you and I had emailed back and forth, and it sounded like that was somewhat specific to
Cabrillo.
Cabrillo, yes. So yeah, Cabrillo. So there's good and bad news with Cabrillo. The good news with Cabrillo is that despite their visual appearance, they are generally in good shape. And when I say in good shape, I'm not just looking at the surface of the roadway, but I'm talking about its structural stability. Those roads are structurally in good shape. There are a few areas that are going to need to be, dug out and full reconstruction. Those areas are limited, but I've asked staff to incorporate that into the upcoming larger pavement plan update, which is due in May. And I've asked that they would put Cabrillo in there and target it for either 2025 or 2026 as soon as they can get up there. I think it's pretty straightforward resurfacing project. It should be easy for them to accomplish, and we don't want to let those roads get away from us. I think we're getting close to a point where we can cost effectively refresh them, and I want to get that done.
Yeah, I think if you wait too much longer, the potholes will carry people away.
Yeah. And if there's specific locations where there's areas, I just have a handful of guys that are responsible to maintain almost 1,400 miles of roads.
Yeah.
So I am fully dependent on our 280,000 residents to let me know where their problems arise. So if you see something, say something. We're happy to get out there as soon as possible and address potholes. If road hazards are a priority for us.
And we'll make sure we put that on our website for you.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And I think I sent you previously a link that just that's the best part about using the online. You can call, you can email, but if you use the online, the web notification form, the nice part about that is it gets sent directly to the division that takes care of it, instead of your call getting bounced around or email getting bounced around. It's definitely the more effective of way. And usually when those come in, the notification gets made immediately.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Number 4, it said LOCAC would like to preserve some road easements in Los Osos for bike ped and trails. And the example that you had sent me, and I'm sorry, I forgot the location, was that the county had relinquished some right of way.
Yeah, on Pismo Street.
Yeah. So I can't speak specifically to how the Pismo relinquishment came about. In general, our practice is that in locations where there are existing planned trails or corridors, we would not be relinquishing that right of way. So I think my suggestion in my written response back to you was this might be a higher level conversation that we can work with Supervisor Gibson's office and then bring in all the interested parties. So that's going to be the planning department, county parks, and public works. If there's changes to existing trail maps or specific areas that you want to update, planning department's probably going to be a better point to start with, to start laying those out. And yeah, we're happy to follow whatever plans are adopted, and we don't want to relinquish right of way where there's planned improvements either.
So Josh, or Madam Chair, if I could just jump in on that, if
Sure.
I'm remembering that piece of Pismo, there was some vacation of part of that right of way, which was very wide, but there was retained in the middle of it a suitable width to put a trail through. So
Yeah, unfortunately, some of the home owners there took a little bit more than they were allowed.
well, if they're improving in that area, eventually that would have to come out if we were going to develop a formal trail through there. Their actions there don't give them the prescriptive right to take that land for us. And I know, and I think Josh, you've been through this before, that when a proposal to vacate a public right-of-way comes up, we do a very careful look about potential impacts in terms of not just automobile traffic, but also trails. So, but we'll appreciate the heads up on this, and we'll make sure we redouble our efforts on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the history on that, Supervisor Gibson. All right, the next one down was the number of drainage issues in Los Osos. Is there a plan to improve drainage? And I'm here wearing the roads manager hat, and as far as making improvements to drainage in defense of the roads, the answer is no. We certainly support efforts by the CSD or other entities to make other drainage improvements, but there's nothing on the books related to improving the roads. And I think that kind of segued into your next question, which was when the water treatment plant was designed, there were infiltrators included to take care of some of those areas. I emailed you a list, Trish, that you're welcome to send out to the folks here. I'll talk to our GIS team and see if there's a way to get those located on the public facing side of our website. You know, there's about 12.5, maybe 24 infiltrators that were installed that County Public Works maintains. And again, as far as I'm aware, we don't have any other plans to install additional infiltrators in terms of the need to defend the roadway.
Okay.
And the last question here is equestrian crossing at Rodman, and I believe that's where the location you were talking about. Correct?
Yeah, Rodman and Pacho.
So I will admit that I have a soft spot for this location, and that's only because I'm completely perplexed how a Class 1 trail was constructed and then just ends kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I have been adamant since day one that the LOVR corridor plan would include showing how to properly terminate that Class 1 path and recommend any improvements to the intersection, including making the crossing more accessible for. I really was thinking about pedestrians, but the comment about equestrians, I think, is great feedback. I honestly wasn't aware that this was a popular equestrian crossing location.
It is. I probably stand in the middle of that road, almost getting killed, probably 2 to 3 times a week, trying to help horses across, because the horse property is on this side. And if they want to go across to ride Montana de Oro, they got to cross Pecho.
Well,
So,
I can tell you in the meantime that I'd be happy to go out, and if they're not there already, there should be equestrian crossing advisory signage out there if that's being
There-
used.
yeah.
There is.
The signage is there now.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But
But
the
nobody pays
cars are
attention
going
to.
50 miles an hour down this road from the park. So if they saw a sign, they would be not in time to stop.
So I think because of my insistence on this location, I'm pretty sure the design team volunteered me to hold court at the table for this section of road. So when we do our open house in about 4 weeks, come see me again.
Okay,
I'd love to hear your ideas.
I have some. All right, let's go to Molly. She has her hand up.
Yeah, so I think it was on topic number 5, I'm not sure, but we had heard that there was a drainage study that was going to be done in the next some months relating to spots in Los Osos that were having flooding and or kind of, having problems with heavy rains. Do you know if that's actually in the works?
I can't speak specifically about that. I'm not aware of that. Again, as focused on roads maintenance, we're not performing any studies related to the roads. No.
Okay. So it may be being done in your department, you're just not aware of it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's possible. I did ask, and that I couldn't get a definitive answer. I don't think that there is a study that's happening looking at low water.
Okay, so we'll have to sort of follow up on that to see what's going on with that. Okay, thank you. Really appreciate your update.
Thank you.
Deborah.
Josh, so glad to see you here tonight. Thanks for your time. So I will be coming to visit you at the open house because we do have some suggestions. Being head of transportation committee, I often have people ask me, well, what if we pay for the improvement? And so I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming that if somebody wanted to pay for some installation of maybe say a sign or something, would that be acceptable? I mean, does the county allow that?
You'd have to give me a very specific example that you're talking about.
Okay, I'll give you
Point
an
out this-
example.
the-
How about an equestrian crossing at Pecho and Rodman that was designed for horses, but allowed for pedestrians to use it? One of the things that came out of our safety assessment was that a regular pedestrian crossing would trigger ADA requirements, but an equestrian crossing does not trigger ADA requirements. It would be a lot less expensive. So the question to my equestrians and my pedestrians is, well, what would it cost to put up a flashing light with a button that they could press to cross the street, and that pedestrians could use it as well? So if there's a cost involved, whatever it is that something that we could do fundraising for?
So you actually raise a great issue, and this is one of my motivations for trying to go after and put together these corridor plans, because the ability to package up and identify small specific projects is one of the goals. And I think this would be a great one to raise, that to make a smaller package project. Off the top of my head, I'm not innately familiar with the state and federal requirements related to installing notified equestrian crossings on county highways. And but again, the corridor plan is the vehicle to vet that out and what that looks like. As far as how does something like that get paid for, there are mechanisms to do that, and fundraising is one of them.
Great, because there are a lot of people in that location that'll be very interested in making that happen sooner rather than later.
It actually, Deborah, you do raise a good point that historically, most of the stuff that my division is responsible to maintain, we did not construct. It was constructed through private development, or it was funded through some sort of a grant program. So for the most part, once the projects are constructed, the roadways are built, trails, sidewalks, et cetera, whatever falls within our purview. Once that work is complete, then we inherit the maintenance on that.
All right, great to know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Even though Ron is not council, he kind of is. So I'm going to ask you to unmute Ron, and then after that we can go to community.
Good evening. Good to see you, Josh.
Nice to see you, Ron.
Yeah, I wanted to just add a little clarification on the drainage responsibilities out here. They're a little bit complicated. I know what the district has historically maintained and what the county has assumed has been a little bit gray in the last few years, and that I have requested a meeting with Public Works to work through some of those issues. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we know there's a lot of questions like what Molly brought up, but we need to have a meeting of minds between the CSD and Public Works on this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ron. Thank you.
And then I just wanted to kind of go back to the easements, just to kind of let you know what we're doing for the active transportation. What we've been really trying to do is work with the schools and get safe routes to the schools, safe routes to the library. And if we can utilize all of the easements that we currently have between the neighborhoods, then we can get safe routes for the kids to get to school and to get to the library, get down to Baywood, get back up here. So that's one of the areas to get them off the road and maybe on these easements. So that's one of our areas that we're looking at and we're trying to map right now.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Let's go to Jim Hale. I'm asking you to unmute. There you go.
Hi, Josh. Thanks for being here. Like Deborah, I'm on the Active Transportation Committee and had a chance to review the Safe Trek report, which talked about some of the crosswalks in Los Osos, particularly the two on Los Osos Valley Road, one right by the Methodist Church just west of Pine, and the other one past Monarch Grove Elementary on the way to Cabrillo Estates coming out of Vista de Oro. Both of those crosswalks were recently painted, but there's no beacon. And oftentimes I've seen traffic pretty much chase people out of the crosswalks. And so you mentioned, the things that you do to upkeep them, to address them, but is there something that can be done sooner, such as put a crossing beacon in place to notify vehicle traffic that someone's trying to cross, wanting to cross, as opposed to just sort of taking their life in their own hands at times and trying to cross? So is there something that the county can do sooner rather than later?
What we're doing is what we're doing, which is the putting together the corridor plan. So that's the type of question we would want to have answered with the plan. Is it currently compliant, and is it recommended for improvement? Again, like I described before, that we're fully dependent for the most part on private development or grants to make improvements. That's the same for all of our safety upgrades. So to take an existing unsignalized crosswalk or unbeaconed crosswalk and fund and install those beacons, we have to have a mechanism to go chase that down. Simply requesting the money from the feds, they're gonna I jokingly call it the birth certificate. They're gonna want to see the birth certificate. How did this idea for these beacons come about? And I can't just tell them, well, it seemed like a good idea. They want to see that there's some plan, some adopted documentation that this is a necessity. So the corridor plan is one of the mechanisms to do that, to make that determination. If you can be available to come out and see us on the 24th and just make sure your voice is heard, that would be greatly appreciated.
I will do that. Thank you. And that, I guess, to Deborah's point, is there a way that the local community could raise the money to put those crossing beacons in place? You know, if that's something that we can follow up on, that would be helpful as well.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again for coming tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Lindy, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Josh. I had a follow-up to some work that the county came and did last Monday after numerous complaints from the community about the Sylvester's area. There's a lake that forms on the curve from 11th and on to Santa Ynez. And normally just orange cones go out there that's how the fix has been done. But the work that was done on 10th Street, just another, same block area, the crew came out and put fill along the non-dangerous, non-flood area side and really didn't address the area where the road is collapsing and the street water. I believe it all started when the sewer streets, some of the cantilevering changed, and there are two lakes that make it impossible for pedestrians or it's a bicycle lane. There's no crossing it for 2 days after a heavy rain. It's two solid lakes that meet in the middle. I have pictures of it, but the crew basically said that there was no money for this. The answer is to put two of the infiltrator basins at the point up ahead. And but so if the county has no money, is this just what I was told that we get to live with the two lakes? That was what the head of the crew said. Because it rained on Wednesday and nothing changed. So again, it's appreciated that the workers come out and try to do something, but if it's not effective, I think I'll be at that meeting too, because I believe there's some serious problems that aren't that expensive to fix. They take somebody with, some smarts to figure out how to get that water that pours down from the upper blocks and then just becomes a river onto 10th Street and then floods all the properties. So it's frustrating to have the same problem after the crews came out and spent half a day and brought in all the heavy equipment, moved gravel around and blah, blah, blah. So I guess I'm whining a little bit, but I wish the county would consider that we do need some drainage solutions in a couple of serious parts of town, and they just need to get done in the future.
Okay,
So
thank you, Lindy. Let's go to Lynette. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello, thank you, Josh. That was a great presentation. I had a question that maybe only Larry or Lindy have been long enough that they'd be able to answer this. There used to be something called quiet title, and I think that had something to do with the road on Pismo being taken over by property owners on either side. Is quiet title something still granted by the county? Is that still being done, or is that something from ancient history? Thanks.
Josh, do you have any idea? I don't know what that is.
I would direct that question to the county surveyor,
Okay,
James Cooper.
thank you. All right, Dave and Bev, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Oh, hi, it's Dave Bolus. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I just wanted to bring up another item that goes with the corridor study, and that is, as a longtime attendee at Traffic and Circulation, I know we've heard in the past that there's not enough businesses because of the way that they're counted in the stretch from South Bay Boulevard down past Fairchild to count as a business district, and therefore it is not a 25-mile zone. And that's something I guess I'll bring to the corridor study. But it seems as if that's a place where people are going too fast, and there's left turns in and out of Ralph's 2,000 transactions a day. And there I asked him one time. And so that's a place where if there's some way to deal with the speed limit there, I think it would be helpful. There was an accident a few months ago at Fairchild Way, and I asked the sheriff or the highway patrol about it that time, and they didn't have details, and I didn't follow up. But anyway, there are accidents there typically, and so that's a place that needs to have some attention at the corridor study. And I guess what we heard before was that it counts as one business per building, even though Ralph's, for instance, has 5 businesses in its building, and the Van Bearden building has several businesses in its building, and so forth. Thanks a lot.
Sure. I thank you for that question. I can specifically address the business district designation. There's a little bit of bad news in that the state has recently updated their standards regarding what constitutes these special districts. The good news with the update is they have expanded the definition of these special districts to not only include schools, residential, and business districts, but also to include areas that are have concentrated senior facilities. So if there's a large senior housing development, that could constitute a special district also. Specific to business district, they did clarify in the new update to those districts that this is intended for businesses that front onto the street. And the idea being that you have parked vehicles, you have businesses that are accessed immediately off of the street. And so in the case of that zone you're talking about, I guess that's probably between about like Fairchild and South Bay. That a lot of those businesses don't actually front the street. But we're also sensitive to the speeds that are along there. We've heard a lot of feedback from the community already related to the corridor plan. And those are the kind of factors we want to take into consideration as we're directing the work of the consultant, is can they bring forward some suggestions that will slow vehicle speeds without necessarily severely impacting, congestion at the nodes.
Perfect.
Yeah, you make a good point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Joshua. I really appreciate it. Great report. And I think you are open to leave now.
Well, thank you. You're welcome to read.
If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, please do.
So again, I would just encourage you to go ahead and link our work request page to yours.
I will.
Again, we're dependent on getting feedback, and if you have any follow-up, please reach out to Trish, and I'm happy to get back to you on anything.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gibson, I'm sorry I interrupted you earlier. Would you like to finish your report? Or
Well, first of all, I'm just so proud of myself that I wasn't completely wrong about the HCP. But I want to thank Kip and Claire and especially Joshua for hanging in and giving all that information. You're hearing from the people who actually know what they're talking about, who actually do the work. And I'm really grateful for the time they spend. Just following up, Deborah, you had one question about the loan that would front the HCP. What we're trying to do is get that to be an internal loan from county funds, which is something we do on various projects. We've got a whole process to go through. The interest is minimal on that, and there's standards for payback. So interest isn't a big deal about that. So if we get it going that way, we'll see. That's all part of this, what we've got to do between now and then. And then Blake sent me a few notes, and I can't remember if Claire mentioned it. Advisory Council training set for April 26th, 8:30 to noon. at the San Luis Obispo Library branch, not far from the government building. First time that's been offered since 2019, and good chance to get face to face with county staff and your colleagues and various advisory councils from all over our fine county. Just looking backward at the Board of Supervisors meeting from March 12, a couple weeks ago, we did talk housing policy. We're going to be looking at how we can encourage residential uses in land that's zoned commercial. I think that's pretty relatively low hanging fruit. Of course, nothing is easy when you start talking land use regulation in the coastal zone. But we're also trying to work on developing a housing incentive program so we can bring some financial incentives into that. You know, and then working on things that we normally have been working on before. Pre-approved plans for accessory dwelling units, expanding a density bonus program, and streamlining the permitting process. So it's a full court press on that. We do need to develop housing. As you know, that potential is not unlocked until the Los Osos community plan is passed, but the pieces are falling into place, and we're hoping to get that going before too long. Upcoming April 9th, we're going to have a hearing to consider and adopt an update to the county code to allow for a more enforceable noise ordinance, but especially between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Sheriff's deputy could issue a citation for nuisance noises, loud music, yelling, singing, which I'm worried about, although I don't sing very much. I know that that would be considered a nuisance de facto, but that it'll give us a little more flexibility in how we deal with noise complaints. Meshes in with our work on vacation rentals and things like that. So, I mean, a bunch of other stuff. You've already had a long meeting here from county staff. Blake and I remain available to take your questions offline if you'd like, or I'm happy to answer those that you have this evening.
Okay, any questions, Deborah?
Yes, I do have a question. Supervisor Gibson, I used to attend the Bicycle Advisory Committee meetings at the county office. I haven't done so recently, but I understand that they are no longer meeting there because there was not money to open up the county building. You needed a security guard, and so they couldn't meet there. Obviously with Zoom, that shouldn't be a problem. They should still be able to meet. I just haven't heard if they are actually continuing to meet. And my second question is, it's my understanding that this Bicycle Advisory Committee came to the Board of Supervisors and asked for funding to update the bicycle plan. It was, our current plan is from 2016. It's supposed to be updated every 5 years. Obviously, that hasn't happened. My understanding, and if you could confirm it, is that they were told that they would not be funded, but that they would instead want to be transferred over to an active transportation committee, which, again, this is just my understanding, is a great deal more costly. So can you sort of fill me in on what's going on there?
So I can speak to the second question. Yes, that's exactly what happened. But while it's a bit more involved and a bigger plan needs to be developed instead of simply a bicycle plan, they actually are supportive of the idea of becoming an active transportation advisory committee, because that unlocks a lot more resources to actually build active transportation. So it broadens the concept from just beyond bike paths to multi-purpose trails and those kinds of other facilities. So that's a good thing. It does cause a little bit of delay, but in the whole, it'll pay off. As to how and where they're meeting, if you wouldn't mind sending Blake an email, you will get an answer.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Yes, I am fully in support of an active transportation plan for the county that includes Los Osos. And there is a great deal more money in that pot of money from the state. I am aware of that. My concern is that the corridor study, which is so important to us, is using this outdated bicycle plan as part of their data. And so it's very unfortunate that we have to use, something that's, really not as complete as it should be, in my opinion.
Well, maybe we can have Los Osos lead on this and develop a more comprehensive active transportation plan for Los Osos. I'm not sure. I remember the item in front of our board. I'm not sure exactly what the expected timeline and making that conversion is, nor what it would entail. But keep it up on our radar, and we'll move it as quickly as we can.
Well, thank you. I'll take that up with my committee because we would love to take the lead on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question. Any updates on Sunnyside School?
No, that's been pushed out a number of months because the appraisal of the property has been pushed out. I think it was 10 to 12 weeks, and that was probably 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that. So
All right,
it's on hold till we get that.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, any other council members? All right, let's go to community. We have Lindy asked to unmute.
Hi, Bruce.
Let's keep it quick because it's 8:30 already.
I have just one question. Besides appreciation of the vote on the Diablo 20-year extension thing, I appreciate you guys supporting that we go carefully. My question is, as the Habitat Conservation Plan comes forward, I read the whole article about the state mandate on the needed housing. What stood out there was that there's no affordable housing. I think they have 5 brackets. With our Habitat Conservation Plan, are you taking into consideration that is what we have the greatest need of, is multiple housing, affordable housing? And those, of course, don't make as much profit for a developer, but they're also the top of the list of what's not being addressed. So
the short answer is no, because the Habitat Conservation Plan is a very specific thing about any impact to habitat. It's going to apply to affordable unit or a market rate unit. Separately, we're absolutely interested in developing affordable housing. You may want to go back and review the video of our discussion on March 12th. And so that's moving forward. In Los Osos, we absolutely need affordable housing, and we need, but we need to get the community plan certified by the Coastal Commission, and then absolutely all the efforts that the county does on affordable housing could be applied in Los Osos as well.
Could there be a
Thank you so
formula of
much.
some kind?
Well, we have goals, and I got the board to agree that our goal is to meet the planning goals that have been set, which means that we got a lot of work to do in the low and very low income brackets. So we'll see. We got 4 more years on the cycle, and hopefully we'll start making some progress.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lindy. All right. Any other questions for Supervisor Gibson? Great. Thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate it.
Next I can. Take care, all. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Let's go to CSD report. We have Marshall. No, we have Chuck tonight. Chuck, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay, here I am.
Know who?
Before I get started on the CSD business, I want to say thanks in a couple areas. The county staff for coordinating with the CSD in terms of the Title 19, the retrofit to build updates. Appreciate the coordination before we went into the Board of Supervisors meeting. Congratulations, county, on the huge lift for the HCP. This is a 40-year effort. Some of the staff working on this weren't even born when Marla Morrissey and Meg, I can't even remember the name of her group in the 80s that started that effort. I guess the amazing thing is there's still vacant property because they locked a lot of it up. It's unfortunate that the mechanisms to maintain and take care of the existing preserve weren't put into place when they set the land aside. And that speaks to the updated complications to getting this HCP approved, because now the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, the funding's going to be in place. So congratulations, county. That's huge. Thank you, LOCAC, for continuing to stress drainage issues in this community. My 35 years with Caltrans, even though I was in the environmental branch, you could not help but learn that roads and drainage are inseparable. They cut across all of our natural landscapes and they affect drainage. And 10th Street and Pine Street, and there's parts of this community that need evaluations from a road and drainage system operation. So thank you for continuing that. So on to CSD business. Yeah, I'll start with the bad stuff first. I know that Mission Country, the recent rate increases were just a shock to everybody. All of those were approved when the county was still handling our solid waste franchise. And now this will be our first go around with Mission Country, and they have let us know that there will be a rate application increase being brought to us in the near future. So that's something to not look forward to. The school recycled water connections, it appears that the middle school is on schedule for the connection to the recycled water system this summer. Finally. We're going to start using some of that recycled water. The other schools are still on hold. I mean, Baywood Elementary, there's a major rebuild. So, you know, some of those things will have to take some time. We have a new requirement from the state regarding the electrical vehicle fleet requirements. We're going to have to be looking at electrifying our fleet, public entities especially, I think 2024, 100% by 2027. So we'll be joining the electrification movement, and that's a good thing. We need to save the planet. And a couple of things that really aren't on my list here. Infrastructure projects are going well. We've completed the 16th Street tank rehabs. The new well project, we're on hold pending some supply chain issues that haven't totally gone away. But all in all, the infrastructure projects are moving along. I guess the big news would be the fire department's standard of cover study. We've been looking at everything related to the fire department, the building, how well it services us, what we need to do for improvements, levels of staffing. And so this will be a discussion that will be brought to the community in the near future. Currently, we staff, we have 3 full-time people on board all the time. The 4th position is filled by a paid volunteer position. And we staff that position about 80% of the time. What we would like to bring that up to is 100% of the time, so that we can do simultaneous calls, 2 vehicles out to cover the community at all times. If we have 3 people on duty, we can only send 1 vehicle, and we need backup from another community if that happens. So we'll be evaluating all of this and what it will mean. What I will say is that the last fire tax increase came in 2004. We currently have excellent fire service. We buy our vehicles with cash. We are providing excellent service, but we would like to really consider that simultaneous call capability. And so I think what I heard from a current estimate is that the average household in the town pays 30 cents a day for our fire service. That's what we're at now. So, you know, to bump that from a 80% fully staffed to 100%, what we'd like to be, there'll be discussions coming on this. So pay attention, but you haven't heard a lot about emergency services, and you will be. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from council? Any questions from the community? Great report, Chuck.
Molly has a question.
Molly.
You need to unmute Molly.
Molly, why did you mute yourself? There you go.
Got her.
Okay, so Chuck, are you saying that the second rig won't be used when they only have 3 people on duty?
What we have to do then is rely on backup from Morro Bay or another place. And so that just takes time. We always have the backup, but being isolated a little bit more from San Luis Obispo and other communities, it takes a little bit of time for the backup to get here.
Yeah.
And we would just like to improve that situation.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Chuck, great report. Great report.
Thank you,
so
LOCAC.
much. Chamber of Commerce report, Jim.
Yeah, real close, couple items. We're very close to being a part of the South Bay Community Center office. The chamber's been without a specific location where people can get information. And we're working closely with the board of the South Bay Community Center to make it possible to share. We had problems with our liability insurance. We had to get new insurance because State Farm wouldn't go if we were moving location. Anyway, that's in place. We're just working through other details. Another thing I'd like to announce, it's way out there in May 11th. Just put the date on your calendar. That's the date for the awards banquet for the chamber, when we honor our Citizens of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, Business of the Year, and provided a new Business of the Year. It's a very good event and really would be nice to have people support it. I think people enjoyed their experience last year. We think it would be a good thing again this year. That's it.
When is that date?
May 11th. Start at 5 with a little informal and dinner at 6.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Could we go to public comment for items not on the agenda? Anyone? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So Jim, you're back on for the treasurer's report.
Yeah, I had some problems getting to my account by online. I don't know what that is. Something about my flexibility or whatever, but I'm making an estimate. We don't have much change. We have a balance, a beginning balance, March 1st, or I'm sorry, February 1st, $1,412.08. We made $12 interest, paid $100 to become members of the chamber. We have an ending balance of $1,312.20. My best guess.
Thank you. And any questions for Jim? All right, great treasurer's report. Appreciate it. Larry, land use. I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, we've got 2 projects coming up at our April 1st meeting. One's a deck and a little enclosure. The other one might be interesting. It's Verizon wants to put in another cell tower behind grocery outlets. And first it was going to be a water tower. Now it's going to be a pine tree. So maybe the Tree and Landscape Committee might want to take a look at this. But if anyone has anything about cell towers.
I think it was the eucalyptus.
That's coming up.
I think they suggested a eucalyptus. That was the last.
Is that what it was? I don't know. I took a look at the one at Sea Pines and looks like cell tower to me.
Well, we will wait till after your land use and find out what kind of tree.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's go to trees and landscaping. And Andrea?
Trish, we've got the agenda item coming up, so I don't think we have anything to report at this point. We'll just do our report when we get down to the item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Water Report Committee.
Okay.
Deborah?
Okie dokie. Let me pull this up. All right, so there was a Basin Management Committee board meeting on March 20th. The Basin Management Committee has a new website. It's much better than the old one where you had to go to the county website and get information. Now they have a standalone website. It's www.losososbmc.org. If you were on the mailing list for the BMC, your contact information will be transferred over to the new site. You should continue to get notifications of meetings and agendas. The Basin Management Committee expects the results of our airborne electromagnetic survey that was done by the state in the third quarter of 2024. I don't have a month, but in the third quarter. Also, the BMC, Basin Management Committee, received the following letter from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'm just going to read it. It's a very short letter, but I think it's has important information. Below, this is addressed to the Executive Director of the Basin Management Committee. It says, "Hi, Dan. Below is an update on our efforts as it relates to the nitrate investigation at the S&T and Golden State wells." These are the wells. Golden State is the one that services Cabrillo, and S&T is the well that services Sunset Terrace. "Can you please include this in the BMC agenda packet?" And then here's the body. "The California Regional Water Quality Control Board Central Coast Region continues to work towards identifying the source of nitrate impacting water supply wells in the western Los Osos Valley groundwater basin. The Central Coast Water Board has determined that dedicated monitoring wells installed in the upper aquifer and proximal to the impacted supply wells are needed to identify the source or the sources of nitrate. To that end, the Central Coast Water Board continues to work with San Luis Obispo County to identify parties responsible for the installation and sampling of these monitoring wells. Once the source of nitrate has been determined, the Central Coast Water Board will identify next steps. If it is determined that the source of nitrate is primarily or entirely from historical septic system discharges from the now sewered portions of Los Osos, then the Central Coast Water Board's regulatory authority to require nitrate source control has already been employed by the adoption of Resolution 83-18, which created the Septic Discharge Prohibition Zone. If the source of nitrate impacting the supply wells is partially or wholly from ongoing discharges, the Central Coast Water Board will work with the Los Osos Basin Management Committee and the County of San Luis Obispo to determine next steps. And it was signed James Bishop, engineering geologist from the Central Coast Water Board. Now, it was a great meeting. I have we already heard about the recycled water from Chuck. There's a flow meter being installed at the Broderson leach field. This will more accurately measure the water discharge. That's the recycled water that's sent up to the Broderson leach field. This will more accurately measure the water that's discharged up there. And a study was done by Blaine Reilly regarding estimating the amount of water being used for agriculture. Currently, I'm just going to read this. This is taken out of the executive director's report from the BMC. Daily soil moisture budget, SMB, soil moisture budget methodology, groundwater production estimates for agriculture and turf irrigation are currently developed using a daily soil moisture budget with local data input. Okay. They have a way of doing it. It's called SMB. They use these sources, for example, the kind of crops, how much rainfall, how much evaporation, what water holding capacity and rooting depths that comes from UC Davis, and the crop coefficients. That's what they use now for estimating the amount of water being used for ag. Why are they estimating? Because the ag wells don't have meters, so we don't actually know how much water is being used for agriculture. There is another methodology, it's called OpenET methodology. It provides satellite-based estimates of the total amount of water that is transferred from the land surface to the atmosphere through the process of evapotranspiration. OpenET provides ET data from multiple satellite-driven models and also calculates a single, quote, ensemble value from those models. So all of the models included in the OpenET ensemble have been used by government agencies with responsibility for water use reporting and management in the Western United States. And some models are widely used internationally. All models currently use Landsat satellite data. So they went through a long explanation of the different kinds of data that they get from these two different methodology, and here's the result. A proposed composite method using the satellite data plus the soil moisture budget has the potential to combine the best of the two methodologies for estimating agricultural water use. If you want detailed information about these two systems, you can find it on the March 20th agenda for the BMC board meeting. It goes into very great depth with grids and maps and all kinds of things. If that's where you want to go, you will find it there. And that is my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? All right. You want to jump into active?
Yep.
Oh,
Larry?
Deborah, is there a result from all that research?
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't include it because I didn't want to get too much into the weeds and the details of it.
Does it match?
I'm sorry?
Does it match what the Cliff Harrison report
Pretty
says?
closely. Pretty darn
Okay.
closely. When they compared the two and they said, well, let's look at what we're doing now, let's look at what we're doing over here. There are different ways of analyzing the data, but when they put it all down to get it to the bottom line, they come pretty darn close. So it was encouraging to know that the estimates that they've been using have been pretty accurate and were confirmed by this totally different way of doing the analysis, which was using the satellite data. So then they just basically said, we're just going to use both in a hybrid model, and you have even greater confidence. So that was the bottom line.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Lindy, you have a question?
Yeah, I was at the meeting and I've been an ongoing proponent that we have meters on the private wells. It's being proposed for Paso Robles. So it's not, it's not used. But the problem is we have approximately 500 private wells, and the ag wells are one component, but the private homes are another component. And so anyway, we are still requesting that we get an estimate of what it would cost to meter each of those properties. They can be read by satellite on an annual basis. It's a pretty simple but much more verifiable way of knowing how much water, approximately half of the water in our basin is used by private wells. So again, I still don't know why we want to go to such high-tech methods when some simple methods could be evaluated, and they just to date haven't. So just my
Thank you, Lindy.
Yeah. Just to be clear, this is about agricultural wells and did not apply to residential private wells. I'm talking about the report. Okay, active transportation.
Yep.
I really don't have a report because everything we discussed at our last meeting related directly to the information we wanted to get from Josh, and I think we covered that quite well.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on, there is nothing under the consent agenda. For the regular agenda, approval of a planting project. Andrea, could you go over that project for us? And I did include it at the bottom of our agenda.
Great, and I'll just be real brief. Basically, the Tree and Landscape Committee met a couple weeks ago or a week ago. We talked about a project on the vacant parcel near the post office. And the proposal is that 15 trees will be planted along Los Osos Valley Road, 6 to 8 feet south of the existing sidewalk on that 300-foot footage. This is another project in conjunction with EcoSlow, who takes care of the trees for the first 3 years, including water. We are predominantly putting in oak trees. And we're excited about this project. Again, our push at Tree and Landscaping is to increase the beauty of the entryways to Los Osos, and this really counts as an entryway. I am going to turn it over to John just quickly because he was instrumental in working with this project to give any more comments.
Yeah, this is a second project in short order with the EcoSlow group out of San Luis Obispo, who are kind enough to work with us. And they are, their task is to plant trees all over San Luis County. And they have to plant these trees because of a funding deadline by April 1st. So this had to happen in short order, or we would have lost the opportunity to plant these trees. And I'm just very excited about it, and hope LOCAC can support it.
Thank you. And any questions from council? Okay, can I get a motion?
I have one comment I just like to make, and I don't want to lose this project, but I've gotten new input from other public members of the community that I think should be looked at for this project. But I don't want to hold it up. If there's an April 1st deadline, whatever, but I think it's being rushed through, like railroaded, and not addressing all the concerns of our community.
Okay.
That's it.
Gary.
Yes, I had a question about the funding after the 3-year period. It's saying in the proposal that LOCAC would agree for the maintenance after that period. I don't see that LOCAC has funding for this. How would that work?
My response would be it works the way it always works. We get out there with our shovels and our effort because we're concerned about planting trees. And once a tree is 3 years in the ground, it has a pretty good chance of surviving, but we will make sure that they survive if we have to bring buckets of water over. This is on a piece of private property, and we believe that the private property owner has a vested interest to make sure that these trees survive on their property. So between us and the private property owner, we think that this is worth all of us taking a chance that the trees will survive. We are not going to let them die.
Well, I was speaking more on ongoing maintenance past this period. I have a grove of oaks in front of my house, and it's quite expensive to keep them trimmed.
Well, as I mentioned, you're paying for it, aren't you?
Yes.
And this private property owner is, no less committed.
Okay, I didn't see that in the proposal, so that was my question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Molly?
I was just curious with Larry's comment, just what are the concerns of property owners if a private property owner is willing to take this on their property and maintain the trees after they're established? What are the other concerns that members of the community would have that would make that be a problem?
Can I answer some of the questions? One question that came up was entering and leaving the post office parking lot, that these trees might obstruct the view. So that's a concern. And so that Also, they say that LOCAC will take over the responsibility, meaning those people that are on LOCAC now. But are they going to be on LOCAC forever? What about if we get new people elected to LOCAC? They might not want to take care of these trees. That's not a prerequisite for getting elected to LOCAC. There's concerns. All we have is the word of mouth that they talk to the owner. I didn't see no documents or signed anything from the owner that he's going to take full responsibility and liability for these trees. These are issues that are unanswered. And again, I won't stick my neck out and take responsibility for it. I can't do that. It's against my moral values.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion?
You have a question from Lindy, and then I do have a final comment.
Okay. Lindy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we need more trees. We need the visual. We need the ecological CO2 replacement. These trees are pretty much planned by EcoSlow to not block the visual. And what happens in Los Osos is people come forward and we fundraise to get tree trimming done and maintenance. I think there are individual tree groups that will step forward as needed. And so I hope that, takes away a little bit of worry, but it's a barren spot that's going to be so much more beautiful in time, and it will slow traffic. That's it.
Thank you, Lindy. Okay, Andrea.
Thanks. And I just needed to make a comment. I really take offense to the term railroaded, and I think that's inappropriate from one member to another member to another group. And I would also seriously recommend that if a member gets letters or concerns from the public, those be forwarded to the Tree and Landscape Committee so we can address them with the proper names and the proper information. Thanks, Trish.
You're welcome. Jim?
I'd like to apologize for using the word railroaded. I know it was not considerate. Again, here's an opportunity. It has to be by April 1st. Today's March 28th. That's putting it in at the last minute.
Sometimes that's the way it works.
Okay, Jim,
right.
We have, you guys, Jim is up. Jim is up. Jim, I've asked you to unmute. Hit your unmute. There you go.
I've been trying to get unmuted, but said the host was not allowing us to unmute. I'd like to move approval of this project. I agree with Wendy and Andrea. This is a kind of a thing that we want to move forward as a community, and I think this community has demonstrated again and again how it rises to the occasion. This is a really good project that ought to move forward.
Can I get a second?
I second.
A second from Danielle. Can I get a vote? All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 yes, 1 and nays. 1. Okay. 8 yes, 1 no. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And
you.
Trish, you did have Lynette. I don't know when her hand went up, but she does have her hand up.
Okay. Lynette, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, I seem to remember, even though my LOCAC training was decades ago at this point, or at least it feels that way, that LOCAC could not be held liable. There was something about the fact that we were a nonprofit kind of non-entity with no income coming in, thing that we really could not be held liable if something happened with the trees. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, the last thing on the agenda is CAC training. Could I get a raise of hands from people who believe they can go on on April 26th at 8:30? Deborah, Molly, let me write it down. Deborah, Molly, I can't. Larry, and Andrea. Okay, I am going to be in training in Northern California on something totally different. Unless you guys want to learn about herbal medicine, you're out of luck.
I don't know. It
Whoa.
sounds pretty good.
I know. So the no's are Trish, and I know Danielle's working. Gary, how about you?
I'll be out of town.
You'll be out of town. Okay. Gary, I told Jim he's gone to 4. He doesn't need to go into any more. So Jim is a no. John, what about you?
Yeah, I can't make it then.
Okay, so John is a no. Do I have everybody? I have Deborah, Molly, Larry, and Andrea going. I've got Trish, Danielle, Gary, Jim, and John not going. Do I have that right? Okay.
What about Jim? Did you
I
say
have
Jim?
Jim as a no.
Okay.
He's gone 4 times. He's done. He's done.
Do I remember
and-
correctly that it's going to be recorded?
It is going to be recorded. So all of us who cannot go, please, Claire will share with us and I will unmute share. So Claire, so she can talk to us. So if we can't go, for whatever reason, just Claire will give us how to listen to it. Okay. And I just want everybody when they have some time to hear it. Anything else on this, Claire?
I'm sorry, Trish, sorry.
And do you have anything else you need to add?
Oh, no, but I'll just be certain to get the recording to anyone who needs it.
Okay, great.
Thank
And I will email you tomorrow on the 4 people who are going.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from council? If not, we are adjourned.
Good night, everyone. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
9:05 adjournment. Thank you.